Good Friday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk, an insider's guide to real estate life and the pursuit of happiness, presented by Keith and Yonna Smith of the fabulous The Yes Team Realtors. Judah Wickhauer is our director. Eliza, the rescue from Caring for Creatures, also a valuable team member to this operation. And our executive producer and star of the program, the distinguished gentleman, Judah. Let's welcome him to the show. Barbara Lundgren has a message for both of us. Barb, we love you. She says, Keith and Jerry, call your mom.
Well, she called me. But yes, I will call my mother after the show.
She's a mom and a grandma. She says there's nothing better than the phone call from the son.
Oldest son, too, on top of it.
That's you or the oldest?
I'm the oldest. I'm the oldest of five.
Oldest of five. And do they all live in the area?
All except for my sister, Kelly, who's 2 years younger than me.
And she lives?
In Jersey.
Okay.
She's in Nutley, New Jersey.
You're a fortunate guy to have family close.
My mother and father are literally 3 miles away from me.
That's awesome. How did you make that happen?
We don't have time. That's a long story. I came down
because you were the first.
Yeah, exactly right. I came down in '87. My parents came down in '88 or '89. But they like you that much, huh? Because you drove them crazy growing up. I think maybe Long Island, New York, in the late '80s kind of drove them out.
There you
way.
Go.
They went, we'll go with him.
All right, my friend, we have a 3-day weekend on the horizon.
We do.
Labor Day Monday, Keith Smith.
Yeah, so I did a quick little research this morning. I wanted to kick off with Labor Day and a little bit of history of Labor Day, and it goes back to the 1800s. So I'm not going to get too much into it, but the basic premise of Labor Day when it started, back in the Industrial Revolution times, people were working 12 hours a day. There was no rules. They had young children as young as 5 actually working in the factories. So it was pretty horrific back in there. So, but somewhere I like to look at it this way. In June of 1894, Grover Cleveland signed it into law. But one of the things I like about it, one of the theories of who actually started it, is a guy by the name of McGuire, Pete McGuire, and he was a carpenter. So being an old wood butcher myself, I swung a hammer enough in my life, I kind of latched on to that. So, but it's not all, the whole purpose of it isn't, it's kind of like Memorial Day, right? It became something maybe so less solemn, but there's a very good reason why we have Labor Day. And so I just kind of wanted to kick off the show a little bit about that, and there'll be a test later.
Okay. I'm taking mental notes right now.
Mental notes, yeah. God bless you. That's why God love you, because that's the reason I got one of this and this, because I can't do mental notes. So we're going to introduce a couple of rock stars. One is Valerie Palamountain, amongst being the dean over at the college, over to Piedmont Community College, one of the deans there. She has the distinction of being my next door neighbor.
Wow.
So I get to see her every morning. We wave hi to each other.
Okay.
And have a quick little, as they go for their walk, and my wife and I go for a walk. We kind of say hi to one another.
Okay, so we have to be on our P's and Q's today.
Well, we always.
If not, you're getting some toilet paper on those trees over there.
Well, when have we ever been on our P's and Q's?
I know, Keith Smith.
You're a bad influence on me.
I know I am. Hey, right back at you.
Yeah. So, and then she lives in a home that I built, in a subdivision that I built some years ago. So I'm loving to ask this simple question, right? We brought this up, I think it was last Friday, right?
Yeah. And it took off?
It took off, yeah. So, where is the disconnect? There's 30,000 folks unemployed, and, we're having conversations with some business owners and why they can't hire, but we got all these unemployed people. So where's the disconnect? So I reached out to 2 really smart people, Val and Ridge Schuyler, who's going to come on after Val. Help us answer that question. So we'll start with our normal tell us about it. So I'll let you introduce. We're a little bit behind schedule.
Sure.
So if you can.
I'm going to get Valerie on the line.
Appreciate it.
Keith Smith's fabulous neighbor.
Fabulous.
Real Talk. Isn't this the beautiful thing? And Judah, it's ringing. Isn't this the beautiful thing of the show? We put a topic out on Friday. Folks say they want more on this topic. And then you bring folks in to give the people what they want.
I'm just lucky. I just know really smart people, and Val's without a doubt one of those super smart people. But yeah, you're 100% right. I love it. I nobody knew that's the way the show was going to go on Friday. It went. So let's try to get some information out.
I love it. So we
I'll
have
shut
Val
up
on
and
the
drink
line.
coffee.
We have Val on the line. Val, if we can get you to activate your camera. That way we can see your beautiful face. You're live across the world, the Commonwealth, the country, and Charlottesville on the I Love CVille Network.
No pressure, Val.
You are now, good, you got the camera turned on. Slide it a little down. Oh, very nice, Val, very nice. That's what I'm talking about. All right, so Valerie, you are live for everybody. I'm going to turn the computer here in a matter of moments so you can see your favorite neighbor, Keith Smith.
Favorite?
She chuckled. Okay, but before I do, Val, why don't we talk personal before we talk shop? Who are you? What are you all about? Give a brief introduction to you personally and what you like to do, Val.
Okay, my name is Valerie Palamountain, and I'm the Dean of Workforce Services at Piedmont, Virginia Community College. I've been in that job for the past 16 years. And before that, I lived up in Pennsylvania in the Philadelphia area. Hey, Keith.
Hey, Val.
Before I got into higher education, I worked in the private sector for a number of years, about 20 years, doing project management.
Val, you need to turn there you go, perfect. Now we can see, you're kind of going back left and right. But I know that house you're looking at. I'm pretty familiar with the house that's behind you. So, and she still talks to me. Go figure. So we had this conversation. We bumped into each other as we were walking in the street the other day. Yonna and I, my wife and I, were walking one direction. You were walking the other direction. And I kind of just tabled this question to you. Where's the disconnect, right? We've got 30,000 people in our region that's unemployed, but we have people saying, hey, I can't hire folks. And I'm just going to kind of get out of your way. You're clearly the expert on this, and I'm going to let you give an explanation why you think that is.
There's so many reasons. It's hard to just list what the reasons are. What's happened in our economy, going back into 2008, we had the Great Recession, and everyone thought, there were a lot of comparisons made to the Great Depression of the 1930s, and everyone thought we would come out of that and, it would be, smooth sailing from then on. However, the part that they skipped was that we're going through some massive changes, and this happens about every 500 years, where there are just massive changes in our society and our culture, and we're going through those right now. So that we were expecting to come back, and instead what happened was we had a pandemic, and our unemployment rate went sky high. Today, the job creation numbers came out for August, and we're at just under 1.4 million new jobs for the month of August, which is way too low. We should be at 4.5 million in order to get back to the employment rates that we need to be. So, what's happened is that there aren't enough jobs being created, and the jobs that are being created are not necessarily paying what people need to live on. So that we're still seeing a big discrepancy in earning power. So that's one of the biggest issues, that we're just not seeing the salaries coming back at the same level that they were.
So, workforce services. Tell us a little bit about what actually you guys do there. I know intimately because we've worked together.
I don't know.
On some stuff, but folks listening may not know what that does and the service that you provided. It's pretty awesome.
Well, what we provide is training to get people who are either low skilled or unemployed into middle wage jobs. Middle wage jobs start at 12 to 15 an hour, and going back a year or so ago, there was a lot of talk about $15 being the minimum wage. And that $15 an hour, we work roughly 2,000 hours a year, so that's a $30,000 annual income. $30,000 is still a little bit on the low side for a family of four, so they're still living in poverty. However, it's getting them into the ability to earn something, earn a little bit more than what they should be. So what we're doing is just trying to get people into good paying jobs that have more of a career path rather than low wage, minimum wage jobs. Minimum wage is still at $7.25 an hour. So when we talk about $15 an hour, we're talking about doubling the minimum wage.
So Val, you said Great Recession in 2008. Personally, I consider it a Great Depression because it impacted my industry and us pretty substantial. But as you were speaking, I was thinking, what happened in the trades, in the construction world or the development world is, folks went from not hanging drywall to working at Walmart for 22, 24, or whatever the heck it was per hour. And then when the economy got better, those jobs never came back. And not only did those jobs never came back, the skills never came back. And our conversation on Friday was, we started it off, lumber prices are going up. Oh, it was Tuesday. I can't remember which day it was. But lumber prices per house. So if I was to build that house behind you right now, today, the lumber price would probably be $10,000 higher than it was 30 days ago. Right? So,
yep.
So
that's very true.
The second component to that is there's the lack of skilled labor, which you guys work on. I know not necessarily the trades end of it, but you guys do some pretty awesome stuff in the medical field, which is desperately needed. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. We do a lot of training for healthcare professionals, and usually they're starting out like at $12 an hour. One of the biggest problems that we see in the healthcare field is the shifts. The seven to let me get the shifts correct. What is it? 7 to 3, 3 to 11, 11 to 7. Those shifts are difficult for working, particularly working mothers, working parents, to be able to take care of their children. So that leads to a problem with being able to fill those jobs. Secondly, a lot of those jobs in healthcare are not necessarily full-time with benefits. So that a tremendous portion of our salary is still going towards healthcare, and that's another issue that needs to be addressed. I think that's something that we've pushed off as a society. We've pushed off the healthcare onto the employers, and at some point we have to recognize that healthcare is a human right. We should be making sure that all of our workers and their families have access to adequate health care.
Amen.
So I'm still trying to get this question answered, right? We've got the 30,000 out of work. We have people that are looking to hire. So, the workforce services, other than healthcare, you guys do some other pretty awesome training. How can your organization help, or what's the best path from what you guys are doing there at the college to help solve this unemployment? What can you guys do? And then the follow-up to that is, how can we help here get that information out? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sense. Probably some of the biggest things that we do are truck driving, CDL, Class A,
Sure.
Driving the trucks. You can get a job paying $50,000 easily, and as a truck driver, it's 4 weeks, 160 hours worth of training. You could go from being unemployed to making $50,000 in a matter of weeks.
So let me stop you there for a second, if you don't mind, Val. So great, I want to do that. How do I do that? How much does it cost? Is there help Is there assistance to pay for the course? How do I do that?
How clean a driving record do you need?
Because one of our faithful watchers,
Andre Xavier is looking for this, and he's watching now.
Yeah, so we actually have
CVille Hop-On Tours.
CVille Hop-On Tours is looking for CDL drivers. So maybe you two, I can connect you two guys, and maybe you can help them find a CDL driver. But let's focus on that. So I want to do that.
Okay.
How do I do it?
Okay. The first thing you do is you can contact my office for.
We lose her?
I think we lost you, Val.
Val, you still there? Oh man, she's about to drop knowledge bombs.
I think she's reconnecting there for a second.
Okay, she's calling us back.
So we're gonna try to get Val reconnected because she was gonna drop some knowledge.
Oh man, Valerie, I wanted to hear what you have to say. Valerie, if you're watching, we're gonna call you back here. Valerie was about to drop some knowledge bombs on us there about CDL. Valerie, I'm calling you back here. J-Dubs, it's ringing now.
Yeah, so while you're doing that, so the basic question is I want to do this. How do I do this? And how much does it cost? And how can I get in there? And then we want to connect our dear friend Xavier.
Xavier.
With Andre, excuse me.
Okay.
So the real quick.
Yeah, you're the military guy.
No, one of my awesome nephews is named Xavier, and I keep on thinking of.
Okay, gotcha. So Valerie, let's get that camera turned on. We have her on the line. We may need the on-screen graphic. Valerie, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. I'll tell you what, we're going to put your headshot on screen from PVCC, so you don't need to worry about that camera turning on. You just give us the audio here, and where we last left it, how can someone go from zero experience to this 4-week course and become a truck driver here? The show is yours on that topic, Valerie.
Please.
Okay, what we can do is we ask people to get in touch with us, to give us a call, and what we'll do is a screening interview. Make sure that you're qualified to become a truck driver. This means that you have to do some things. You have to bring in a copy of your record. You will need a permit, a trucking permit. You also have to get a Department of Motor Vehicles physical. So we'll go through all that, the prerequisitions, the prereqs in order to become a driver, and then you can sign up for the class. And the class is $4,500. There is financial aid available. It is approved by the state for what's called Fast Forward, which is a program that the state created to address the need of high demand occupations. So what the state does, what we ask the student to do is pay 1/3 up front. So instead of $4,500, the student pays $1,500 up front. And then after they complete the class, it's a 160-hour class. After they complete it, then the state pays the college $1,500. We get the second third of the tuition. And then once they get their driver's license, we get the final third. The state will pay the final third. So instead of $4,500, the student pays $1,500. The only requirement is that you have to be a citizen or a resident of Virginia for 12 months. So before you can be eligible for this type of financial assistance, you have to have been a resident here for 12 months. For people, so Keith, you're eligible. You can take that class.
You've been talking to Yonna. Val, get this guy a job, will you?
Yeah. What's this guy do? He talks to Jerry all week.
All this guy does is talk. Val, I've been waiting for the zinger to come out in this interview.
There was the zing.
There was the zing. There was.
And Val, that was hilarious, lady.
So Val, I'll remember that next time I see you on.
If I could have 2 more seconds.
Sure, of course.
If you are financially insecure, if you meet the federal poverty guidelines, I believe it's either, I think it's 200% of poverty, then you're eligible for something that we call FANTIC, which is financial assistance for non-credit training that leads to industry credentials. Yes, it's a mouthful. And what the state will do is pay up to 90% of the student's share. So that $1,500 is now $150 for the student, and the state will pick up the balance.
So we got questions coming in for her.
But before we do that,
Yeah.
I just in my and if Rich, if you're watching, we're a little behind schedule. We'll call you in a few minutes.
Yeah.
So let me get this straight. I want to. Apparently, Yonna wants me to get a job, right? And Yonna and Val apparently been speaking. So at the bottom line of it is, if I meet this certain criteria for that long acronym, all I have to do is come up with $150 and I get a CDL license. That sound about right?
$1,500.
No, 150. 'Cause
No.
if
150 if you meet the poverty guidelines.
If
There's
I don't meet
another
that guy.
kicker to this. There's another federal poverty guidelines, 200% of poverty.
Yeah.
It is $12,000 for a family of one, $26,000 for a family of four.
So why this
So
is important, if we have
If you
some,
are single, 200% of poverty is $24,000, $25,000. That is nothing. That is nothing. So a
we
lot of
have-
people will meet that.
we have these 30,000 people out of jobs. Some of them, if you go through the stats, or
Right.
bartenders,
Yeah.
wait staff
Hospitality, food and beverage.
that are not,
Right.
they're probably qualified
Those are
for
low-paying jobs, yes.
what Val
There's one
just.
other kicker to this. There's a new program out called Virginia Ready. This was just announced August 1st. This was put together, it's a nonprofit put together by employers who are desperate for workers, and truck drivers are one of those workers. They will pay $1,000 after you earn your credential. So you can take the class, if you're eligible, pay $150, take the class, and at the end, when you get your driver's license, they'll hand you a check for $1,000. You come out of this.
Please don't
ahead
tell
by
Yonna
thinking-
any of this.
She's watching, Keith. This is incredible. So this question's coming in now.
Sure.
For you, Val. I'm going to throw this to you. Jerry, you know who I am. Please do not use my name when asking your guest this question. I own multiple restaurants in town, and I cannot find somebody to work for me. Please ask your guest if the problem I am encountering is the people that I'm targeting for jobs at my restaurants are instead sitting on the couch collecting a check from the government and unwilling to work in my restaurants. Your thoughts on that topic, Val?
That's to me, that's an easy answer. No, it's way more complex than that. We're living in a time of a pandemic. People are afraid. They are working with people in close proximity in a restaurant. I think what we need to do is take a look at how do we make things safer for our workers. I've been to restaurants, and I really don't like telling my server to please pull their mask up. But I know wearing a mask is uncomfortable, but these people are touching my food. So we have to come to some kind of an agreement of what does a safe working environment look like. Secondly, is that this country, for some reason, which just baffles me, is we make our wait staff rely on tips. And wouldn't it be more sensible just to pay them the $15 an hour and add that into the cost of the food? Now, it's not something that's going to go overnight, but for years.
That's how they do it in Europe, Val. Right?
That's tough, though. A lot of the restaurateurs are saying the margin does not allow for that kind of pay for their staff.
So it's a more. This is a more.
This is a deep topic.
This is a deep topic.
It's a deep topic. I'll get
Yeah,
off
because
this
when you
one
go
then.
to Europe and you tip 20%, the waitress or waiter looks at you like,
Yeah, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I think we need to look at that, but that's going to be that is a much bigger discussion. But what it means is, are people sitting at home collecting the unemployment check and saying, I don't want to work? My vote is no. I believe most people do want to work. What they want are meaningful jobs. They want regular hours. They want to have a safe work environment.
So
Do you agree with that?
Well, I can speak from personal experience. My daughter is in Seattle, who's a school teacher who can't get a job and is collecting unemployment. And she's like, I hate this unemployment. I want to get to work. Now,
She's unique, though. You're talking about a Division I athlete, a swimmer,
yeah.
an overachiever
I don't
her
know.
entire life.
Most people, I don't know. I always think the best of people, and you know that. So
Yeah.
I think most people, by and far, would rather do something and feel
Than sitting on the couch and playing Xbox.
yeah, and
Right.
and the reality of it, even if that's really happening, that's very short-lived because we're not going to be able to afford that much longer. So,
Right.
But what I thought was most exciting, because I did not know anything about the CDL program. So, your friend who's having hard trouble hiring people, it's the same stuff that I'm hearing. I can't hire people. I don't really know what the disconnect is on it. But on the other hand, if you're unemployed and you meet a certain level, my God, there's $50,000 a year you could drive a truck or more.
Right, we're doing the same thing. That same program is available for construction workers, electricians, HVAC, solar technicians. All of our healthcare programs are eligible for this kind of financial aid. We do small engine repair. We do computers. Computer certifications are all eligible for this. So it's a pretty broad range of jobs that are available, of job training that's available using this kind of financial assistance.
But the basic structure is the same. There's a fee.
Basic structure is the same.
State pays
It's a foundation for a career.
It's a foundation for a career.
Absolutely.
Val, this question's coming in for you now. You're a popular lady, Valerie. This question's coming in for you. Jerry, can you ask your guests about how the internet is cannibalizing a lot of jobs that otherwise existed 10 years ago and how we respond to that as a workforce? That is a good topic for you, Val.
Well, we want to call in Ridge. I don't know if we got enough time.
How many hours do I have for that one? Is the internet cannibalizing? Yes, this is what we talked about. I started talking about it very early on. We're seeing the shift. If you go back 200 years ago, we were an agrarian society. We had farms. You got up in the morning, you fed the chickens, you had to plow the fields. You did that 7 days a week. It wasn't a job. It was what you did. What the internet is doing is changing our view of work so that we are not doing jobs from 9 to 5 anymore. We are going to work and we are online all the time. So that your weekend, you still check your emails, right? So it's changing how we operate.
My wife calls Valerie, my wife calls my phone the other woman in Jerry's life, and she calls my phone Trixie and says, Jerry, stop spending so much time with Trixie. And she's exactly right, because I'm absolutely a workaholic, and I'm working constantly on my phone.
So
Right.
I just texted Ridge, letting know we're a little late. We were on vacation out in Seattle or
You
whatever.
were closing deals on vacation.
Yeah, so it was just,
Right.
for us, we went from, they would say, well, I said, no, I didn't work. I only worked like 4 or 5 hours a day. and everybody went, what? When you're working 12 plus hours a day, 4 or 5 hours
It's a break.
It's a vacation.
Yeah, it's a vacation.
But it's also, you're hanging out in Seattle and fishing for salmon and doing work.
And on top of that, we don't see what we do as work, which allows us to do it on vacation.
I've never worked a day in my life.
I feel the same.
Yeah.
I feel the same.
Right.
Valerie, how about this question?
Yonna would say, I never
Yeah,
worked
my
a day.
wife would say otherwise, too. And that's why we get along, Keith. All right, Valerie, get us out on this note. We're going to welcome your colleague, Ridge, to the show here in moments. How about a final word, Valerie? Anywhere you want to go, educate our massive audience on any topic that you think they should learn about.
I think what we also need to look about is inequality in salaries, another huge topic. But the statistics are absolutely terrifying. That the top 1% is making 40 times what the average income is. That is so obscene, and that 41.5% of the people in our country are considered low income. That's almost 50% of our fellow citizens are low income. That's unforgivable. We need to do something much better.
Well, there's
And
a
by the
show.
way-
There's a show there in itself to include the disparity between male and female incomes, and
And that's getting worse because of COVID, because
Yeah.
a lot of the virtual learning is falling on the shoulders of women at home, and it's keeping them from climbing the vertical career ladder
Sure.
at work. So I'm very fearful of that. Valerie, you hit a grand slam today. This sounds like a welcome back guest here. Valerie.
I'm writing notes.
Yeah. Hey, Valerie, you are a superstar. You made us smarter today. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks, Val.
Okay.
See you
Well,
on
thank
the
you so
street.
much.
See you hanging around the street.
Yeah, hanging around the street.
That doesn't sound right, but
They're neighbors. They're neighbors. All right, we're going to go long on today's show because it's a bona fide topic, and I'm actually really prepped for my show.
I'm sorry?
I'm prepped well for my show.
Okay.
So we can go long on this one. Okay. I got Ridge on the line.
You're
Ridge
prepped
will go
all the
to you in a
time.
matter of moments. Judah, can we welcome Ridge to the show? So what I'm going to do is, you're live in Charlottesville, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world here, Ridge, on the I Love CVille Network. You have a hell of a lot of people watching you right now. I'm getting the thumbs up from our director to welcome you to the show. Before we talk shop, how about an introduction to you and what you like to do, personal introduction, and then I'll pass you over to Keith Smith.
Great. Well, thank you for having me on the show. I'm Ridge Schuyler. I'm a native of Orange County, Virginia, and I'm pleased to be here.
Yeah, and so a little bit more about yourself, Ridge. I'm reading your bio. You got some exciting stuff. So tell us a little bit about your life, brother.
Yep. So grew up in Orange County, ended up going to the University of Michigan for undergrad, watched the great Wolverines play in the big stadium, came back to Charlottesville and went to law school here, ended up practicing law for a couple of years in New York City, realized that wasn't for me. Came back home, practiced law a little bit longer, decided that trying to help people one at a time was too hard in the trial courts. And so I decided to quit my job and become a driver for a candidate who was running for Congress. Led to 10 years of work on Capitol Hill, where I was a chief of staff to a congressman and a chief policy advisor to a United States senator. Ended up coming back to Charlottesville with my family, raised my 2 boys here with my lovely wife, and have now landed at the community college where I am a dean, trying to help people connect to jobs that lead to careers that provide family-sustaining wages.
This guy's a stud. You're a stud, dude.
That's the first time that word has ever been described to me, but I appreciate it.
Now I'm like,
look at this guy, right?
I'm nervous now.
Yeah.
Where do I take it from here?
This guy's resume is bona fide.
Oh yeah, that's the reason I want him to do that.
And most of it is true.
Most.
Most.
I love talking to Ridge.
I can tell.
And he did was kind enough. Oh God, it was April when we did the Regional Housing Partnership Summit. He was one of our presenters on that. I remember in the preparation of it, Ridge, don't listen. So and our preparation for it, some of the key people, because I was the emceeing it, or I was, as the chairman, I was doing that. And then they were looking at my name and they were looking at Ridge's name, and they looked at the rest of the guests and they went, yeah, nobody's going to say anything. Once Keith and Ridge start going, that's it. It's over. So so was New York City made you leave? Was it New York City that made you leave New York City, or was it being a lawyer?
It was mainly being a lawyer, to be honest.
Got it.
I was a lawyer in a 425 attorney firm, and I found myself working day and night just trying to figure out whether this big corporation should get the money or whether that big corporation should get the money. And it didn't feel like I was really helping people on the ground. And I just thought, this is not how I want to spend my life. So,
well, I'm glad you decided to do that for one.
For our sake.
Yeah, for our sake.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about this what you've created at the college. Tell us what it does. Tell it what it is, what it does, and how it can help people.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting to know. So I was the district director for for a congressman here in Charlottesville for Congressman Tom Perriello, and the genesis of this work started with when I was the district director for the congressman. People would just walk into our congressional office and say, I just want a job. And I'm thinking, what is the big disconnect? I mean, there are jobs all around us here in Charlottesville, yet people couldn't navigate their way to it. And so when the congressman was defeated, and let me just say as an aside that it is very, very hard to be fired by 119,000 people, but that's what happened.
It hurts a little bit, doesn't it?
It hurts a little. That one stings. I set about trying to figure out, what is this disconnect? Why is it that people who are desperate for work were having such a hard time finding quality jobs in a community that has plenty of them? And so I started this journey as a worker at a nonprofit affiliated with our local Chamber of Commerce, because our local Chamber of Commerce recognized that not only is it bad to have people who were not living up to their potential in our community just as a moral matter, but it was also bad for business.
Yeah.
if people couldn't find quality jobs. That means fewer consumers spending money. It also means not enough workers to do the work that needs to be done. So that launched my journey in 2011 to try to figure out what is this disconnect and what can we do about it. And so we built a framework that is called Network to Work. I migrated from the Chamber of Commerce to the community college, where I now serve as a dean. And the focus of our work is trying to align the three networks that are essential for helping people find family-sustaining jobs. And those networks, and nothing I'm going to say here is rocket science. I'm a history major, not a scientist. But what we kind of figured out doing this work is that there are three networks that have to be aligned in order to move people into quality jobs. One is employers. There got to be jobs. There got to be people who are, looking for workers. And so the very first order of business is to find who are the employers that are hiring. And I'm sure that you all mentioned during this show the number of employers that are looking for workers. And so the first order of business is to find those employers. What is it that you need? What are you looking for? The next part, which I think is the most interesting part, is then how do you find the people who would be a good match for that job? We call it the job seeker network. The job seeker network is all those people, like the guy who walked into our congressional office. How do you find the people who've been left behind in our economy? And what we know is that information spreads most naturally, word by word of mouth. Your neighbor hears of something and says, "Hey, have you heard that UVA is hiring?" So our job seeker network is built off of people in communities who just know everybody. We feed them the job information on their smartphones so that we say, "Hey, Design Electric in Charlottesville or Extrema Cable up in Greene County, they're hiring." We take that job information, we convey it through technology that we built through the smartphones of these socially well-connected people in neighborhoods. So that's the job seeker network. And then lastly, we know that somebody might be really interested in a job, but if they don't have a car that works, if they don't have somebody reliable to watch the kids, if they have flat feet that prevents them from standing for 12 hours at a time that is required as a shift at the Walmart, they got to have all of that. They have to have a doctor who can serve them. And so the last thing is the provider network, wrapping services around the people who want the jobs to make sure that they're ready and able to get those jobs. One of those providers is Valerie Palamountain. People often need skills that give them more value in the eyes of employers. So it's skills training, but it's childcare, it's transportation, it's a lawyer if you need one. So that's the last network. And Network to Work, the framework that we built, wraps all those three networks around a person so that we can make the match between the person who's desperate for the job that pays a family-sustaining wage and the employer who's desperate for a quality worker.
So now
Great answer.
Now you know why I wanted him on.
Yeah, this dude's a stud. I'll say it again. This dude's a stud.
Yeah.
I'm a double stud, I guess.
So he's a matchmaker. He's a matchmaker.
No.
Exactly.
You've spent enough time up in New York. You should know what this word means. He's a yenta.
He's a yenta.
Right?
I'm being called all kinds of names, most of them good.
Well,
unlike what I usually hear.
The show's not over yet, so slow down.
Okay, let's ask him this question.
And there's no FCC rules, Ridge, so.
Okay.
Yeah, let's ask him this question. Rich, so here's where we're at and how we got on this topic on a real estate focused show. But one of the things that Keith has done is he's turned his show into something that's an asset for the community. So we're hearing from people in the community that own companies and businesses. And they say to us, we cannot find people to work in our companies. We know that, and the numbers change daily, we know that roughly 30,000 people are out of work in Central Virginia. Where is this disconnect? Why is this disconnect happening? What can we do to solve or bridge the disconnect?
So I think the biggest disconnect that we see is that it is not, what we have found is it is not enough for jobs to be available. That job information has got to get into the hands of the people who are looking for work. And while that sounds really simple, it's actually, it requires a lot of intentional effort. So the build it and they will come, have jobs and people will show up isn't the way the world works. It's not the way people decide to change their lives. Most of the people, who are looking for work, they don't believe when they see that billboard that goes by on the bus that says there's a job available, they don't really think that job availability applies to them.
Or it's real.
Somebody needs to grab them by the lapels and say, hey, have you ever thought of working at the Walmart distribution center in Zion's Crossroads? And that person may say, I didn't even know that job existed. What is it like? What do you do? And somebody needs to talk to them one-on-one to say, this is what the job is, and this is what it entails. And so the disconnect is really the conveying of that job information in a way that people can actually appreciate and act on. And if you and so the network that we've built, which is this conveying information into neighborhoods with well-respected, socially well-connected people, is modeled off of how people find jobs just ordinarily. Ordinarily, when I get a job that crosses my desk, at maybe a new faculty position at PVCC, I stop and think, now who do I know that would be good at that?
Sure.
Oh, it's business and real estate. I'm gonna call up Keith and ask Keith if he'd like to be an adjunct professor.
Hold it. Time out. Val's trying to get me a truck driving job.
He wants you to be
You're
a
trying to get me a
professor.
job. So apparently you two are talking to my wife and saying, hey, get this guy a job, will you?
Yeah,
all he's
get him
doing
out of
is
the
this
house
all
really
day
what-
long.
What you said. Anything that gets him out of the house.
Oh.
Long haul trucker may be what you would prefer.
Oh,
but
good. Thank you, Rich. Appreciate it.
Cross-country trucker is what
Thanks,
she
guys.
might
Cross
prefer.
country.
Rich, you're my buddy. Thanks, man.
There you go. But that's how the world works.
Yeah,
And so
sure.
what we need to do is transmit the job information to the people who know the folks left behind in our economy. And that is the heart of what our job seeker network is. I know the employer, they reached out to me. I know the job seeker, I reach out to Keith. We're trying to build that network very intentionally so those employers have a place to put their jobs where then there's somebody in the neighborhoods recruiting on their behalf. And so it is human contact that leads to job success.
So we talk about
in
this.
our view.
We talk about this on the show all the time from a real estate perspective, but it's really across the board. Trusted advisors, right? Seek out a trusted advisor, and then we talk about it all the time. What we do is not transactional, but it's relational, right? So it's all about building relationships, and the whole reason why Ridge is here is because we established a relationship some time ago, and exactly what you just said. Hey, he's the perfect guy, along with Val, to talk about this. So this is exciting stuff. I wanted to bring you on because I kind of knew where you were going to go with the conversation. We're fortunate enough to have a pretty decent following here on the show. So how can people who are watching get this information? Where do they go to get this information?
So there are two ways to go. One is you can find out more about how Network to Work works by going onto the website, pvcc.edu, and in business, and you'll see Network to Work. So if you just want a general idea of what Network to Work is, that's one way. If you want to connect with us directly, you can email us at network2work, that's the number 2, network2work at pvcc.edu, and we will respond. But just to bootstrap off what Keith said, I mean, it is about relationships. It truly is. And that's how the world works. And that's what we're trying to build, are more connections in our community.
So what we'll do after the show, I'll drop in a bunch of this information in the feed, the emails and the websites for both what you do and what Val does. So folks, at least if they're on the feed, they have a place to click off of it.
Perfect.
On that end of it. I'm going to let Jerry ask you a question.
I have a lot of questions coming in for you.
Yeah, so I'm going to let Jerry ask questions and turn around. One of them, particularly the restaurateur.
Yeah. So here's a question for you. This from a business owner in town that's asked that we not use his name. He's struggling to find people at his restaurants, and he wants to know. And maybe you're already debunking this stigma. The stigma is a lot of the folks unemployed, sitting on the couch, playing Xbox, collecting some unemployment, because perhaps that money is certainly more consistent and maybe more lucrative than what they can get, say, at a restaurant where they're operating at minimal capacity and they make their money on tips instead of the $2.13 an hour, so they're just taking the guaranteed pay. Are we debunking that stigma? Is that not accurate?
So here's what we've found, and all I can say is what we found. We have 930 job seekers that we're currently serving. Here's what we see. People are afraid. People are afraid. Number one, there's a lot of fear, and the question is, do I want to risk my life for this job? And the second thing is, honestly, the lack of childcare. And that has become even more critical with, in our locality, schools that are all online for the first 9 weeks. I have one rising junior in Charlottesville High School who's going to be online for 9 weeks. If you're a working parent, you're stuck. You're stuck. There's nobody to watch your kids. You're supposed to be homeschooling them, and you're trying to be a full-time worker. And so, I look at it as saying, thank goodness that there are some unemployment benefits so that people don't lose their housing on top of everything else, because that landlord, they need their money too. But I found that people are pinned down by both fear and the lack of childcare as the biggest driver of why a lot of our job seekers are still sitting on the couch and not going into the workplace.
Okay, follow-up question to this, and it's a perfect gateway to what you just said. It seems to me, and it is not right, it is not right what's happening, but it seems to me the onus of virtual learning is falling more on the female in the household than perhaps the male. My concern is that this could have potentially a big impact on women trying to climb the professional ladder. Anywhere you want to go on this topic, because virtual learning, it's so novel. We don't have experience doing this, and moms and dads will do whatever for their children, even if that means sacrificing earning potential, vertical climb in a career. Anywhere you want to go on this topic.
Yep. So, the vertical climb was hard before the pandemic. It is really hard now. And here's the challenge, and I'll be very specific. We can, in fairly quick order, train people and get them into jobs that pay roughly $30,000 a year, which is double what you get at minimum wage. And so we're very good at getting people into that entry-level job. But that $30,000 a year job in Charlottesville, Virginia it's not much, yeah. Especially when you think that rent is $15,000 a year. So half your income is going to your rent. So we need to help people climb the ladder. But in order to get to that next rung on the ladder, the rungs are too far apart. That next rung on the ladder isn't a 2-month training, it's a 12-month training. To say, go from being a certified nurse assistant making $30,000 at UVA Hospital to being a licensed practical nurse at the University Physicians Group where you're making $45,000. $45,000, now you're talking about, you're starting to get into the middle class. We are asking parents to be full-time workers because the rent is still due. They still got to work that full-time certified nurse assistant job at $30,000. We want them to be full-time workers, full-time parents, now full-time teachers, and full-time students. You can't...
There's not enough time.
There's not enough time. Something's got to give. And we have to just be smarter about helping get those rungs of our income ladder closer together. And so that is our next great challenge. We can pat ourselves on the back, and I think we should, moving people into those $30,000 a year jobs, but we can't stop there because that is not enough.
I'm going to throw this to you, Keith. We talk about this all the time. Why are we not having a larger priority put on, and what's the phrase here? Skilled jobs like electricians, plumbers, truck drivers, like Val said. I mean, for so long, I grew up in a two-parent household, son of entrepreneurs. We had options at our disposal here. And for my entire childhood, it was graduate from high school, go to college, go to a 4-year school. I went to UVA. Why is that not now graduate from high school, consider a 4-year college, but also consider this skilled labor path that does not have enough employees in these working verticals? Your thoughts on that?
Yep. So I think we've kind of missed the boat and on skilled trades, which are incredibly great jobs. I mean, I'll give a very specific example. We had a job seeker. He was working part-time at Arby's, sleeping on people's couches, cashing his paycheck at $5 a paycheck because he didn't have a bank. He started off moving from that part-time job to a full-time job as a banquet server at Farmington Country Club, where he was making $11 an hour. He stabilized his income, and then he said, I'm going to go into the skilled trades. He then he got a job with L.A. Lacy as a plumber, and he's moved up the income ladder so that he is now making close to $40,000 a year after 2 years of being an apprentice. There are incredible career ladders in the skilled trades. However, as the skilled trades have aged, there wasn't a huge demand to fill those jobs because a lot of the local plumbing companies had workers. They didn't need new plumbers because they had all the plumbers they needed. And so the recruitment, the pipeline into those trades dried up as the demand for those, because those jobs were already filled. But now, as those jobs are turning over and those plumbers are retiring, all of a sudden we're like, man, we have not plowed the ground. We have not, that's a double analogy. We have not put people into the pipeline in sufficient numbers to get them into these skilled trades, but they are spectacular jobs with defined career ladder opportunities. And I think you're right. We need to make those opportunities available to our graduating seniors who are not going to go off to college, but need something better than just being deposited in the economy to make $7.25 an hour.
So I'm going to add a little bit of my perspective to this because I'm a recovering developer and builder. I know a little bit about this, been doing this long enough. The exact age I can't give it to you, but the median plumber, electrician, skilled labor is in the 50s, right? I don't know the exact number, but they're not 19 or not 20, they're not 24, they're not 30 years old, which echoes to your pipeline thing. But what had happened, everybody, I don't know if you can see my iPhone, but everybody wants to use that. And everybody was told you can make a living doing that. You were told to go out.
I had no choice.
As I said.
Yeah.
My
dad's like, you're going to this school, son.
So my father, God love him, was a bit of he saw into the future. He says, look, son, if you learn a skill with your hands, being a plumber, that is never going to plumb a house. Your iPhone will never plumb your house.
Amazon can never wire your home for electricity.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So my little brother, we call him Doctor. He's a high-end trim carpenter in Richmond, and we call him Doctor because he makes more money than most doctors make. Right? And also he carries around his little bag, and it's get out of my way, don't touch me. I'm trimming out this house, but that's what he does. And there is we're having this conversation with my daughter and my grandson. There's a real conversation who is now 2 years old, saying, look, you don't have to, we're starting at this age. Maybe you might want to think about being a tradesperson, right? Because at some point, we're going to do it. But in 2008, there was just a vacuum, a sucking out of trades. And we have not done a good enough job to create that pipeline to bring people back in. So, hey, man, I appreciate that perspective. I think we need more tradespeople. We talked about this on the show on Tuesday or whatever it was. I actually built Val's house. Don't hold that against me. So, but if we were to reproduce Val's house today, just in the last 30 to 60 days, there's an extra $10,000 in lumber costs. Labor costs are going up. Everything's just going through the roof because you don't have this skilled pipeline.
Yep.
So in a way, I said it a little bit differently, but I think we said the same thing.
Yep, I think we're saying the same thing. We got to fill that pipeline, and we got to.
So how do we do that?
And there was just a gap.
How do we do that, Rich?
So one idea that we have is to start at the high schools, and in the spring of the senior year, we know which students are not headed off to college. We know which students are going to graduate, and there is no guidance counselor or career counselor out in the world. And so our kids graduate. If they're not headed to college, they just get deposited in the economy with no guidance. So one of the ideas that we have is let's put the network to work job information in the hands of guidance counselors in our schools. And when a student says, you know what, a 4-year college isn't for me, or it's not for me right now, we can say, well, have you ever thought about getting a commercial driver's license or heading into the skilled trades to become an electrician? You can decide to go to college later, and look, now you have a way of paying for college because you've got a valuable skill that no one can ever take from you. And so getting down and focusing very specifically, for example, on seniors in high school who are not headed off to college would be one way to start filling that pipeline.
So I have a little bit of a personal experience with this. My wife is Austrian, right, from Vienna, Austria. My nephews, their education path is very different than ours. At the age of 14, he basically had to make a choice. Do I take this vocational path, for lack of a better term, or do I take the academic path?
Are they in Austria?
Correct. This is in Vienna, Austria.
Okay.
And so he took the path to be a diesel mechanic, right? And there's an extra 2 years added to the high school level education. So you basically walk out of your high school education with a 2-year degree. But he gets out of that program, and he's making
bank.
He's making double the numbers you're talking about.
Yep. And so, I mean, I think getting this job information and into the hands of the people who are on the front lines with those future or current job seekers is really the key. So guidance counselors are very trusted agents in our community. K-Tech is very good for the kids who've already chosen vocational education in high school, but a lot of kids fall between the cracks. They didn't go to K-Tech, which is the local vocational school, but they decided not to head off to college. That group of folks they graduate and then plop into our economy to scramble around.
Sure.
Let's give them a different career path that lets them know that these skilled trade apprenticeship jobs are available. And it's not just limited to kids. I mean, you can if you convey this job.
Are you trying to get me a job again? We went through this already.
Yeah, we did go through this. Again, I got a chat from your wife that said really push the long haul truck thing.
Got it. Yeah,
I gotta steer you off the skill trades. But anyway,
I believe it's true actually. But so hopefully in the show that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get some information out there. We have this horrible number of 30,000. Right, that's a horrible number. It's not 10% of our population; it's much higher than that because you got to factor out all the people,
kids and retired
folks and stuff like that. And then we've got this thing. Hey, I can't hire anybody, right? Which they don't connect. But it sounds like we're working on let's get a job, let's get you trained, then we'll hopefully solve this unemployment problem.
Right, and I just want to say, and I know I'm probably running way over time, but in terms of training, I just want to say training is often necessary but not sufficient. You can be the best trained diesel mechanic in all of the globe, but if you don't have a reliable way to get to your job, you are not going to be a successful diesel mechanic. And so we got to make sure that our job seekers have everything they need, not just the skills, but the car that works, the child care that's reliable, the health care, all of those other things that we don't think about, that are not very sexy to think about. But honest to God, if you don't have any money and your cheap car has a $400 auto repair need, you're stuck in your driveway. You are not earning income. And so that's the other part of this, is we got to make sure that we grab the folks, we train them up, but we make sure that they have everything they need in order to be quality employees.
So as you know, I'm a little passionate about affordable housing, or really the way I prefer to call this workforce housing, because really that's kind of what we're talking about here. And I chair a couple of organizations, the Land Trust and the Regional Housing Partnership. But there's three components to it, right? There's the actual housing portion.
You're going to talk public transportation here, aren't you? Yeah, our chemistry's working.
Transportation, right? So you can't have the affordable housing if you don't have the transportation, and then the education component is what we're talking about, right? So if I got a skilled job and I got a house through some sort of nonprofit, how in God's holy name am I going to get from point A to point B?
Right.
If I don't have a vehicle,
especially if you're in the outer counties.
Absolutely.
In Central Virginia.
Absolutely. So
and I think the challenge, again, that we see is that a lot of these entry-level jobs, these $30,000 a year jobs, which, again, are double what you make at minimum wage, which is $14,400 if you're working full-time at minimum wage. So $30,000 a year job doubles the income that you make on minimum wage. But, it may not be enough for you to buy a car. the sad fact, though, is that the $30,000 a year jobs are often shift work or get yourself to the job site. In order to do that, you need your own independent transportation. And we're just never going to be a dense enough community where public transportation solves all of our transportation challenges, and especially, as you mentioned, out in the rural areas. And so people need to be independently mobile.
So what?
Much as it pains me to say that.
So what we're trying to do, Ridge, on this show, on top of general real estate and life and all this stuff, is try to tackle some of these big picture questions and bring some people in. So I've got some transportation folks lined up to come on in to try to talk about
Excellent.
that. And
You thinking Brad Sheffield?
I'm thinking Brad. Jaunt is a great organization, and they have some.
Absolutely.
They have some of these outlying. I happen to live at Lake Monticello, right? So if you actually can get a Jaunt bus from Lake Monticello to your college, right? So it's a matter of getting information out, and we talked about this confidence. It's just so much an education component. People need to know that's available to them, and they can take it, right? So if unfortunately you can't touch anything in Lake Monticello under $1,500 a month in rent anymore out that way, but if you could, there's availability to. They'll actually pick you up from the house and take you. Take you. Am I correct on that?
Great service.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we'll bring Brad in to talk about that, and a couple of board of supervisors that I know are passionate about that, and city councilors, and we'll keep on talking about it. Well, I promised you I'd get you out, and we really ate up a ton of.
Yeah, dude, you killed it. You killed it, Ridge.
But.
I can chew up a lot of time.
Yeah. Well, that's like I said before. Do you really want to have Smith and Ridge together in the same conversation? So I know you got some questions. You want to throw them at Ridge real quick?
Do you want to do that now?
Yeah, sure. You good enough on time, Ridge?
Okay.
Yep. I have about 7 more minutes.
Okay, we could totally do that. So one of the questions that's coming in is if we do get the news about the jobs out there. Who do we contact? Who do we get it to? So we can start connecting the dots here with the open position. So you basically have company owners watching the show that are saying, we want to reach out to you. So can you get that information out again, Ridge?
Yep. So they should email us at network2work@pvcc.edu, and Frank Squilacci, who is our director of Network to Work, will reach out to employers and follow up with them. And just to give you an idea, we have in this piece of technology that we built that collects that job information and transmits it to the job seekers through this job seeker network. We currently have 56 employers who have jobs listed in our tool, and we would love to add to that. So network2work@pvcc.edu, and you will be hearing from Frank Squilacci, former vice president of the local chamber of commerce.
So let me get this straight. I got 56 employers looking for people.
Yeah.
On this hand, I got 30,000 out of. I got 30,000 out of work.
Yeah.
So these people need to call you guys so you can make the marriage. Huh? You are a Yenta, right?
Yeah. I don't know if we can handle 30,000 phone calls.
You'll handle it. Don't worry about it.
Rich, you're A+ people. We'll
Thanks, Rich.
respect
Appreciate
your
it, man.
time. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope to follow up with you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Rich.
I really appreciate
Our
it.
pleasure. Absolutely our pleasure. So one of the things that I want to throw to you, Keith, do we start debunking the stigma that the American dream goes through a 4-year college? Because when I was, so I'm a millennial, okay?
How old were you in 2008?
2008, I was 16.
Yeah.
Okay, so, no, excuse me, I wasn't 16. What the hell am I talking about?
I don't know.
So 27. Yeah, so I'm going to throw this question to you. When I was growing up as a kid, it was get good grades, go to a 4-year college. My dad went to UVA. It was understood my brother and I were going to go to UVA. Okay, so do we start debunking the stigma that that's literally the path we need to take? Because when I was growing up,
I think stigma is a strong word.
Maybe the conception, the idea.
I just think everything is cyclical, right?
Okay.
I just think the reason I asked you how old you were in 2008, there was a very specific reason for that. So in 2008,
that's when I launched my business.
Correct, but in this last Great Depression or recession or whatever you want to call it, there was this whole movement away from, go to college, go to college, go to college. It was people my age going to college. Excuse me for a second. So, I think this is kind of cyclical. Everybody was kind of dumping into the college thing. Now maybe we got too many degrees out there.
I agree. And not only too many degrees, my friend, but they're coming out saddled with massive debt.
Well, my son-in-law is a prime example.
But, I mean, your son-in-law is a little bit different in that his earning potential is astronomical. So he's a doctor.
I'm not so sure about that, but yeah.
He's a doctor.
Yeah, he's 12 years in it up at this point. He's got another 5 years to go.
Of school?
Well, he's in his residency process.
What's a guy? What can I ask around about the kind of debt you come out with that?
5 figures, 500,000.
500,000?
Yeah, sure. And he's making $50,000 a year
as a resident.
As a resident. That math don't work. No. So it takes a long time
to clear that.
So you need to go through that. Everybody thinks doctors make all this great amount of money.
What kind of interest is that debt?
I don't.
Okay.
He's my son-in-law.
Understood. You don't talk about that.
Don't talk about that stuff.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is perhaps we don't.
As long as I don't get extra money, I'm good.
I know. Here's what I'm saying, my friend, is why don't we not encourage more teenagers to go into the trades?
Well, so that's what my father did, right?
Yeah. And it worked.
Well, I don't know about that, but I taught both my children this, right? I taught them how to drive a stick shift. And the theory on that was, you can always, if you can drive a 5-speed vehicle, in this case it was an old Jeep, you can pretty much hop in anything and drive it.
Right.
Right. So, if you can learn a skill, a hand skill, or, something that requires some skill, again, not that working on the internet is not a skill, or what you do is not a skill, or what Judah does is not a skill, or even what I do every day is not a skill. There's a ton of skill involved in it. But, we run the kind of risk of an app taking a little bit over what we do. But if, sweating a pipe, until they get robots to do that.
Yeah, that's going to be a little while.
It's going to be a while.
That's going to be a little while. You have a lot of comments coming in. You want to hear some of these?
I'm ready to go, man. I want to be value of your time, though.
Sure, absolutely. We're good. All right, so a ton of comments coming in here. First, let's go to Nancy Quantock.
Oh, I know Nancy.
Okay.
Nancy well.
Our son in Hagerstown, Maryland, cannot find people who want to work in the install side of the industry. He owns a security service, and finding people willing to work has been his nightmare for several years.
Yeah.
He would say that people want the high rates of pay they think they can get using computers and stay at home to earn it. However, they don't get that. You need manual labor people.
Yeah, and manual labor is I prefer the term skilled because, when the guys are running, I know exactly what they're talking about. The guys that are running the lines for the security systems and all that stuff, there's skill required to do this, right? You just don't.
Oh, it's massive skill.
You just don't.
The electrician?
Well, yeah, this more than likely is low voltage stuff, but in any event, it requires skill. What's an important skill is not to cross your low voltage with your high voltage,
right? Or you're going to die,
or burn something down.
Right.
So it requires a lot of skill, and that's what we've been saying. It's that phone is not going to solve Nancy's son's problem.
Yeah,
education will, right? Getting the word out. But my little brother's a prime example.
Marquis Johnson. I'm a board member at the Haven. I am interested in talking with Valerie about an interest in working with the Haven in the future. I love to work on getting our homeless family in the area into the workforce. Andre Xavier says, thank you so much for this interview, guys. Andy Wilfong, I have a CDL Class A. I was also a plumber way back when, and I made the most money plumbing than I have any other job I've done.
Sure. I used to own a plumbing company. I get it.
He goes, I may go back into plumbing. He's a DJ, and I may go back into plumbing. He says, the internet makes us all equal. If you have an internet connection, you can make money. Your options are literally endless. There's a lot of truth to that. Andre says...
Well, the problem with that statement is everybody's in it. Not everybody. Yeah. Not everybody can sweat a pipe.
Well, the competition is ridiculous with people wanting to use their phone.
Sure.
Let's be honest. The competition is ridiculous for people who want to do this.
Well,
people want to do social and digital. They want to do it. It's sexy. You can do it from anywhere on something in your hand.
Yeah, the other end of it is it's great to be a plumber. It sucks to be a plumber when it's 0 degrees out, you're in a crawl space.
Or how about the person in the attic during the middle of the summer?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Then you're like 115 degrees up there.
That's exactly right.
And you know about this.
A little bit. Been there, done that.
Andre, college is so overrated. Most millionaires are not college graduates. The college will train you to be a W-2 employee. Guess who gets paid under the W-2 system? Uncle Sam.
Well, you know how I feel about college. That's my dream, is to actually get an education one day.
Gigi Davis, encouraging students, adults to go into the trades, plus giving them entrepreneurial skills will help them make a similar wage to what college students make in certain majors.
Or more.
Plus helping students realize that they need to work their way up, starting with manual labor rather than going straight to the top would be very helpful. I love that comment.
So one of the things that are missing in the conversation, this was always a big thing. It was when I was coming up, because, it happened with me. I was on a job site since the age of 8 or 9. I know we talked about child labor earlier before, but I was apprenticed, right? Right.
You paid your dues.
Well, so this whole apprentice, there used to be way back when an apprenticeship program, right? Particularly with the unions, you would go through an apprenticeship program before you get that. And that's something that we do in our real estate world, is we help other agents and apprentice them through the process. But there's and I think that's what Ridge was saying. You can learn, or Val, I can't remember which one. You learn the skill, right? Now you got to actually learn how to apply it in the real world. Does that make sense?
Sure. And Gigi Davis, I just sent you a friend request. We have another viewer, Iris Luck, who says, next week, maybe you talk to Gigi Davis from PVCC Career Services. And then Gigi Davis just commented. I mean, this shows the influence here of what you're doing here.
Wow.
So we have a guest.
What we are doing.
We have a guest who suggested someone, and that person is watching and commenting.
So we talked about, we were kind of maybe being a little down on the internet, or, the iPhones, and what we're doing here. But what we do here, and what this internet and this technology thing is pretty awesome because of that.
Right. Well, we're using this for a positive, as
go.
opposed to the people that are using it to bicker about politics on Facebook.
Yeah,
and we don't want anything to do with that.
We will never do that on this show.
We will never do that on the show. So, more comments coming in. Why don't we give some love to our sponsors? Roy Wheeler Realty Company, Pearl Certification, Charlottesville Settlement Company, Bill Tucker, MarieBette, Scott Morris, Dairy Market, Interstate Pest and Service Companies. Good night. Keith Smith, you're a popular dude.
We've been doing, our shows have been so awesome, and we've been kind of going over. I think we have to do one show just thanking all our sponsors. So we're gonna put that in there. Just you and I talking about our sponsors for a whole show.
I really wanted to hear about the 10 ways.
For 2 weeks I've been trying to get to this. Right? It's what, 11:34. You got a noon show to do.
Judah's giving me the evil eye over here.
What's that?
Judah's giving me the evil eye over here.
No, Judah doesn't have an evil anything in him. So, but we will save that for some other show. Maybe what we'll do is we won't book a guest, and you and I, there's a couple of things I want to talk about that, and I've been working on a show about what is this election going to do to real estate.
Those are great topics.
Yeah.
Your plans for the 3-day weekend?
I'm working all weekend.
Me too. I'm working all weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Judah, your plans for the 3-day weekend. I hope you say I am not working all weekend. Judah Wickauer.
I'm definitely not working.
Okay.
Yeah, I tried to set an appointment up for 4 o'clock this afternoon yesterday, and the person goes, "You mean you want to meet on a holiday Friday weekend?" And I went, "Oh, that's right. This is a holiday weekend."
And did you say yes?
I'll be there at 4.
Yeah.
We'll see if they show up.
There you go. Real talk presented by the Yes Team Realtors.
One of these days,
blast.
we'll talk about how not navigate multiple offers and bids, but we'll get there.
Okay, I love it.
Thank you, man.
Judah, you're fabulous. This show airs Tuesdays and Fridays on the I Love CVille Network, presented by the Yes Team Realtors. Keith Smith, enjoy that weekend.
Jerry Miller, enjoy your weekend.
Thank you. You too, Judah.
Judah, enjoy your weekend. Liza over there,
Liza the dog.
enjoy the bones I brought.
All right, I love it. You guys have a good one. Take care. Dude, 2 great guests. Great topic. Unbelievable topic.